What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Mobility Mondays. I'm Sean Fitzgerald, one of the personal trainers here at Upper Valley Aquatic Center. And like always, thanks for joining and tagging along and going through another week of different exercises that we can do. So like always, go ahead, like, subscribe, and go ahead and try to get some much information out there as we can and kind of learn from one another, and hopefully we can start sharing some more knowledge around there and get some more exercises that we can do with people, try to help, try to spread some different areas that we can take a look at and things like that. So welcome back. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend, right? It was kind of a little rainy here up in the north, but we were able to get, at least Saturday was a good day, so we were able to get out and play with the kiddos and have some fun and things like that. So hopefully everyone had a good weekend, was able to relax and have some fun, do a little house projects if you have to, and now come back to Monday and let's get back at it, right? So last week we were on the hips, right? So we're still going to stay in that area because we only did a couple exercises. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep kind of evolving around there and see what else we can do. So today I got a little loop, right? I got a little resistance loop, Versa loop. There's tons of names for it, but all it is just an elastic loop. These ones are like the rubber ones. So there's cloth ones, there's the tube ones. There's all sorts of different ones. But right now I got just this is our power system ones that we have here, and the lighter the color, it's a little thinner, a little easier. The darker the color it gets, that's a lot harder. So we're going to use these on what I call a hip burnout, right? So this is going to come in handy a little later when we need it. So just in case if you got one lying around, you can go ahead and pull it on. We can also do it without it. So it's just going to be less resistance. So you can play around with that when we get to it. But so let's talk about our hips, right? So a lot of people probably are going to have some problems with hips, sitting too long, standing too long, different types of movements, right? The one key pattern that we want to make sure we're doing is the hinge, right? We want to make sure our hips can hinge. Sometimes it's a difficult task to get because most people don't think of it as a movement. So it's kind of something that your body needs to be able to do, especially if you're going to pick things up off the floor. You're going to pick kids up off the floor. You drop something, right? You move down. Pick going down on the bottom shelf or something. Things like that. It's the hinge pattern is kind of what we're going to be looking at. All right. So we kind of did some like figure eights, infinity circles, right? So we did that. Kind of did some butterfly stretches, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to keep continuing within hips. We're going to give a couple more exercises to kind of tackle maybe some issues. So kind of recap, your hips should be mobile, right? So if we go from the chain to where you start from the bottom, right, with our ankles, right? Your ankles are going to be mobile. Your knees are going to be stable. And then we come up to the hips and we want to be mobile, right? Your hips are mobile, but your lumbar is stable, right? The lower part of your back is not meant to move. It's supposed to be stable. It's supposed to be strong, right? So if you take a look at, this is, pretend that this is your spine, right? This is your head's up on top here where, your cervicals are, right? You come down here to your lumbar, right? Your lumbar is bigger, right? When you take a look at your vertebrae and, things like that. When you look at, the skeleton, the science class, things like that, right? They're bigger, they're thicker, right? They're meant to be stable, right? They're not meant to be able to move and all that. That's where we move up into your thoracic, right? Up around your shoulder blades, okay? In between there. So hips mobile, lumbar stable, all right? So what we want to do today is make sure that we can actually move our hips and all the motions that we need to do, right? It's kind of, your hips are kind of like your shoulder where you can move it in all planes, okay? So we want to make sure we keep them healthy, all right? So let's move this chair right out of the way, all right? So what we're going to do is, I got my band, all right? So we're going to start out with our hip burnouts, okay? Lighter the color, usually easier resistance, all right? So there's a couple different things that we're going to do. We're going to put our loop above our knees. All right. So it doesn't matter which ones you got. You know, you got the ones that are cloth. You got the ones that, you know, are like the tubing with the foam padding, anything like that. You know, so we're going to go above the knees. So now this could be, you know, if you work out or anything like that, it could always be a warm up to kind of start priming your body or anything like that. But I'm starting on my right side, right? I'm in a straight leg position, right? Okay. The one thing that we want to make sure is my hips aren't rolled this way, right? We want our hips stacked up and down, right? So everything straight line, ankles line with the knee, knees line with the hip, right? I'm going straight up, all right? Kind of straight as narrow as we can, all right? Toes, feet, you know, they're flexed. I'm not, you know, pointing my toes away from me or anything. I'm keeping them right here, right? And all it is it's literally just a leg raise, right? It's a straight leg raise with a resistance band. So now if you notice that I kind of bring my top foot slightly back a little bit, right? And I'm just going up and down. So we're looking for right around, say, 10 repetitions, okay? So I got green on, green's pretty light, you know, 10's pretty good. But if you guys are going with like purple bands, black bands, things like that, 10's gonna be really hard, all right? Because they're tighter. You're not gonna be able to move your leg up as much. So you might be only getting away with like a 6 to an 8, okay? Depending on how strong your hips are. But for everyone that's kind of starting out, that are kind of new, you know, might not have done a hip work in a while, you know, it's better to go no band, so you can just go without a resistance, or go light to start with. All right. So start with your straight leg, right? Start the hip burnout this way. All right. Go ahead and come on in. So clam shells, right? Everyone kind of knows clam shells. You know, you see them basically everywhere and anywhere, right? The main thing with clam shells is where your alignment is, right? 45, 99, things like that, right? So what happens is a lot of people try to come out here, right? So you're not really doing a whole lot. You want to make sure that from where your hips and your knees, you know, we're basically at a nice angle right here, right? Feet still, you know, my toes aren't pointing anywhere. I'm still right here, still flexed, still, you know, still got my nice angle, all right? And the same thing with the straight leg is, where are your hips stacked, okay? Some people want to come out here and they leak out, right? We want to make sure we keep these hips closed, all right? And all it is ears open and close, right? So same thing, 10 reps, right? One right after another, all right? So no cheating, you know, we don't want to open up our hips this way, you know, we're here and we're just like, we're trying to open it up. You know, no cheating. We want to keep blades of our feet together, and we're just really opening and using the outside, like right here. So you're going to feel it right here on the outside of your hip, right next to your butt, okay? Right there. And, you know, I call it a hip burnout because it kind of starts to burn, right? After you do a straight leg, go into a clamshell, all right? So now, after we did 10 of these, all right, I'm keeping my knees together, right? Reverse clamshells, external rotations, kind of whatever name, you know, you guys heard of. But all I'm doing, knees stay together. I'm actually lifting just my foot and my ankle now, right? So I'm just rotating this way. So here, you're not going to feel any resistance because I don't have a band on my ankle, right? So this is just purely a motion to do, right? Because, you know, hip moves at all different planes. So we just want to do a little external there, all right? So now, after we do that, so we did straight leg, clamshells, reverse clamshells. Now, knee, ankles, all together. All right. So now, just kind of like a bent leg raise. Yep. All right. So, 10 repetitions each, right? 10 straight legs, 10 clamshells, 10 externals, 10 altogether, right? So you're doing 40 reps right there, right? So for all of you that might not have done any hip work or anything like that, you're probably feeling it right now, right? It's good. It's what you want. you want to be able to feel it, right? Because you're actually working an area that may not have been worked yet, right? So those are all the little things that we want to keep doing at home. So like I said, you don't need a band, so you can literally just knock those out at home before you go to bed, when you wake up, laying on the floor with the kiddos or the dog or your partner or anything like that. You're just kind of relaxing. You can knock it out. So I was laying on my right side. You want to be able to flip over? Now you want to do the other side. Straight leg, 10 clam shells, 10 externals, right? And then all together. So with that, you literally can do every day if you want. Every other day, it's fine. The bands don't, have that much resistance. When you go light to where it's just enough. All right, and then when it burns, you just want to breathe out, right? Breathe through. So that's kind of like a basic introductory to your hip burnout, right? Everyone else that wants to get a little more advanced, all right? So what you're gonna do is, I'll start on my straight leg, right? So what we're gonna do is, I kind of call it the 10-10-10 plan for your hip burnout, all right? So you do your 10 leg raises, right? Say 7, 8, 9, right? 10. Now I'm gonna hold it for 10, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I pulse for 10. And that's 7, 8, 9, right? So kind of adds a little bit more of a challenging aspect to it, right? So I did straight leg, 10, 10, 10. Kind of come up into your clam shells, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold for another 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then kind of pulse for 10. 1, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you do those things, right? You do just the regular movement, an isometric hold, right? Where you're just holding it still. And then you pulse. So it's already, your legs are already up in the air and you just kind of do a little bit. It doesn't have to be a huge movement, just a small movement of you continuously, going a little bit farther. But you do that with straight leg, clam shells, reverse, and then all together. And kind of takes your hip burnout just up a touch, okay? So again, if you're just starting off, you've never really done maybe a hip complex or done any hip works or anything like that, that's start off small. Start off with just 10 leg raises, 10 clams, and kind of build up that strength and that kind of endurance to get to where you can use bands or the 10-10-10, right? So all right, it's a simple little burnout that I kind of do. I like to do it kind of a little before leg day too. If you guys are just doing that as a workout, kind of primes your lower body a little bit. If you're squatting, if you have stiff hips or anything like that, really great, good warm out. You can do it. And you can literally do that as often as you want because you can do it without the band. You can go home and do it without the band, and it's kind of the motion. It's getting your hips to move in all different areas. So let's come on up to the next one, right? So everyone, when you think of the hip, right, you just think of bone, right? You just think of, here's my, the head of my femur, right, is my fist, and then, my hip kind of encloses, and you think of that as your hip, right? Well, what about your hip flexors, right? Everyone kind of hears the term, but what is your hip flexor, right? So think about kind of, where your hip bone is, right? And then you kind of feel kind of right down in front. You feel a little, you can say like rope or, there's something just on the front, right? Well, that is going to be your hip flexor, right? I'll start with that because I was touching that one, so we'll go right here. So right now I'm in a kneeling stance, right? So, or a half kneeling stance, right? And, I got, right now I'm, 90-90 with my knee and, my hip and ankle and things like that. But, right now I'm not really feeling anything, right? If you need a pad under your pillow or under your knee, you can use a pillow, a blanket, a mat, anything like that. I'm on carpet, so it's a little that's cushioning, right? Well, I'm going to take this lead foot right here, the one that's up, and I'm just going to step out a little bit, right? This is all judged off of what you can do and what your body, is able to do. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean forward. Right? I'm just leaning into this lead leg. So what you should be feeling right now is something right here, right? You're going to probably be feeling a stretch, right? So that is going to be your hip flexor. All right. Now, some people might not be able to come as far forward and you're going to feel it. Some people might have to go a little farther. Some people might, if you're more of a gymnast or, have a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more range, you would probably be in a full front squat, right? Or a full split, right? Your leg can go out. And so that's all the years of practice of you being a gymnast or things like that, right? So, but, most people, as we get a little older, we start to, lose a little bit of range within it because we're working at a desk, we're sitting a majority of our time, right? So kind of tightens up on us. But this is just a simple little hip flexor stretch that you can literally pull off anywhere, right? Anywhere that allows you to space, and really all we're doing is, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, it's kind of where your tolerance is and really how much you really want to work on it, right? So, one little thing about your hip flexor is that if your hip flexor is tight, right, does it correlate with low back issues, right? So if you have a little bit, stiffness or you're tight in your low back, maybe your hip flexor is pulling on your low back, maybe, right? One way to find out, stretch your hip flexor, right? Do some exercises to where, you can target that area, right? So half kneeling, a little hip flexor stretch, right? Kind of loosen up this little bit of area for you. All right. So it can be done anywhere. You can do it after a hip burnout. You can do it after, say, a squat, your deadlift, basically anywhere, anytime. The one thing you want to know is get a little bit loosened up a little bit more, kind of get the blood flowing a little bit. But as long as you're not in pain and you're at that stretch of a just slight discomfort, that's where you want to be, right? We don't want pain. We're not here to create pain, right? We want to try to get a little better, right? So, but hey, hip flexor is always going to be tight. It's kind of, as we get older and especially with our jobs and, not as many people are able to really focus on that area as much. But what we can also do is another easy exercise that you can literally do at home. So the only one I would be careful is if you have little ones that like to climb and jump all over you, it might be a little awkward because they move in a certain way and, might hurt a little bit, but I call it tactical frog, or if you yogis, they call it kind of like a frog pose, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to open up my hips past, hip width apart, right? And I have my knee, right? I got my knee and ankle bone in line, right? I got my feet kind of flexed, all right? So for some, this is probably going to be where you're going to go, right? This is probably going to be comfortable because you're going to be like, Sean, what are you doing? I can't do that, right? Some are going to be like, what am I supposed to do from here, right? So all you're going to do is literally just come on down and you're just going to sit back and do your hips, literally. Because depending on where your range is going to dictate how far back you can really sit into your hips, okay? So, mine are a little tighter, right? So farther you sit back, right, if you're not feeling it, try to put your chest on the ground, right? Try to get your arms in front of you. That's a way to get more into it, a little deeper, right? So some people, you might not be able to even get your hips even really open, all right? you go, it's a little bit more advanced, but you go to where it's comfortable for you, and then note where you're at. A couple days later, try to go a little farther. Try to move a little past from where you were, right? So that little gain is where you want to go at, all right? So every time you do it, you want to be able to improve just a little bit more, right? Doesn't have to be extreme, doesn't have to be, I'm going from I couldn't even get my hips open to my stomach or chest is going on the ground, right? Like that's, build it over time, right? And make sure that it feels comfortable every time you do it. You're pushing yourself just a little bit until you get, where you really want to be. But, we only covered a couple different things today. More than likely, we'll be going to hips again. There's a lot that we can do in this area. So I hope that last week, kind of into this week, kind of give me some more ideas of things that you can do while you're at home, maybe in the office real quick, kind of on a lunch break or, anything like that. So, like always, we want to, like, subscribe, let people know what's going on. And if you're ever here in the Upper Valley, right, stop on in the Aquatic Center, say hi to all of us. And, if you got any good tips or, some areas that might bother you that you want us to kind of indulge into, hey, we can do that too, right? But, so hopefully everyone has a great weekend, right? Coming into your Monday strong. And let's kick the work week off pretty good. And hopefully you guys are, still going at it, still continuing. 1% better every day is all we want, right? So again, everyone, enjoy your week. All right. Enjoy next weekend. And we'll see you next Monday. And we'll keep hammering the hips and see what else we can do for you. All right. You guys enjoy.